Sometimes, the illusion of perfection hides the deepest cracks, and when truth finally surfaces, it doesn't whisper, it roars. What happens when the fairy tale shatters under the spotlight of the entire world? On the night of his 35th birthday, tech mogul Ethan Blackwell hosted the year's most exclusive celebration. The guest list was a collection of Los Angeles' most influential figures. But while Ethan, the golden boy of robotics, raised his glass to innovation and glory, his pregnant wife Leah stood in the shadows, unseen, unacknowledged, and forgotten by the man who once promised her the world. He didn't just ignore her, he erased her. But one guest, camera in hand, saw everything. By morning, Ethan's polished empire was crumbling, and Leah had become the most talked-about woman on the planet. This is the story of how one evening of public humiliation sparked a global reckoning. The silence in their Beverly Hills mansion had a life of its own. It breathed in the chilled, sterile air of central air conditioning and exhaled the faint scent of untouched, expensive lilies. Leah Blackwell, 7 months pregnant and feeling the weight of it in every step and breath, traced the edge of her porcelain teacup. Her reflection shimmered in the mirrored tray beside it, warped, distant, unfamiliar. Outside, the sounds of the city were muffled. Hollywood's usual chaos rendered a quiet murmur inside the fortress of their 12,000-square-foot steel and glass home. But Leah felt detached. This life no longer belonged to her. It belonged to Ethan, her husband. A world wrapped in ambition and algorithms, not love. Their love story had once been the kind that made lifestyle blogs swoon. Leah, a brilliant and passionate cultural anthropologist from a modest but stable Seattle family, had met Ethan at a nonprofit fundraiser. Back then, he was not yet a tech icon, just a fiercely determined founder of a small robotics startup named Synthex. He had pursued her with a laser focus that both disarmed and enchanted her. He had said he loved her mind, how she could find stories in ancient ruins and meaning in forgotten traditions. He made her feel understood, seen. 4 years later, Ethan Blackwell was a titan. Synthex was now a tech giant valued in the tens of billions, and Ethan, its visionary king. His face graced the covers of Forbes and Wired. His name was synonymous with disruption and brilliance. But the man who once looked at her like she was the center of his universe now looked through her, his eyes fixated on a future of IPOs, robotic automation, and digital domination. Leah rested a hand on the swell of her belly, where their son kicked gently beneath layers of silk. This child was supposed to be their reset button, the project that would tether Ethan back to Earth. When she told him she was pregnant, his reaction had flickered briefly with the warmth of the old Ethan. He held her tight, eyes misty with emotion. "A son," he whispered, but the word had felt cold, transactional. More about legacy than love. The warmth vanished almost as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the crushing demands of a new product launch. A secret endeavor he dubbed Project Sentinel. It was going to revolutionize the way defense systems worked. It also hollowed him out, until all that remained was the CEO. When she told him she was pregnant, for a fleeting moment, he lit up. Ethan had pulled her into his arms, eyes glimmering with a trace of the man she'd fallen in love with. "A son," he'd whispered, voice husky with emotion. But even then, the word had felt heavy, too formal, too strategic. Not a symbol of joy, but an heir, a piece in his expanding empire. The glow faded almost instantly, consumed by the demands of his latest venture, Project Sentinel. It was groundbreaking. He claimed the defense AI platform would reshape global security, forecasting threats with near-perfect precision. It would change the world. It would also change him. Ethan vanished into a whirlwind of conference calls with Zurich and Seoul, endless boardroom pitches, and late-night war room simulations. He came home long after midnight, bathed in the cold glow of his tablet, kissed Leah's forehead out of habit, mumbled something about global impact, and disappeared into his home office. Tonight was his 35th birthday. But it wasn't a celebration, it was a strategic showcase. A high-stakes performance, curated to perfection by 3 separate PR agencies, politicians, tech rivals, celebrities, billionaire investors, all sipping champagne that cost more than Leah's first car. Ethan had called it a critical convergence of influence. Leah had suggested something else, something simpler. "Just us," she said softly a month ago, resting her hand on his arm. "We could drive up to Mendocino, that inn where you proposed." Ethan barely glanced away from his tablet. This is better, honey. It's important. Everyone who's anyone will be there. For us, he added, for the family. But it didn't feel like a family anymore. It felt like branding, another division of Blackwell Enterprises. This afternoon, Ethan's assistant had sent a stylist to their home. The woman? Precise, humorless, unrolled fabric swatches and assessed Leah like a mannequin. Gowns floated past her eyes, all luxurious, all breathtaking, and all designed to hide the very thing that should have been celebrated. Her pregnancy was treated like a PR liability. In the end, she picked a sapphire blue silk dress from Armani. It draped beautifully across her curves, but it didn't feel like her. It felt like a costume. As the hem was being pinned, her phone buzzed. Chloe, her best friend, a no-nonsense political correspondent for the LA Times, didn't waste time on pleasantries. Are you really going through with this? Leah pressed the phone to her ear. It's his birthday. I have to. Chloe scoffed. It's not a birthday, Leah. It's a coronation. Don't let him treat you like part of the scenery, Chloe had warned. But now, standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the hills of Los Angeles like a postcard, Leah felt exactly like that. Furniture. A fixture. The glittering city stretched out beneath her feet like a sequined rug. And she was nothing more than another decorative piece in Ethan Blackwell's penthouse. Once she had filled this home with warmth, rich earth tones, textured tapestries from her travels, framed photos of sun-drenched ruins and childhood memories. Now it was cold steel and sterile perfection. Ethan's team had optimized the space, stripping away her identity and replacing it with curated abstract pieces and austere high-yield art investments. Her favorite reading nook, a plush mustard velvet chair by the fireplace, had been replaced with a sharp modern chaise in black leather. It was visually striking and impossible to sit in for more than 10 minutes. A showcase, a gilded cage. The door to their master suite opened. Ethan emerged in his tuxedo, a sleek, custom-fit Brioni that molded to him like armor. He looked exactly like his press photos, commanding, magnetic, untouched by stress. His presence crackled with self-assured energy. He glanced at his watch, a limited edition Patek Philippe gifted by a Middle Eastern defense contractor. Traffic's already a nightmare on Sunset, he said briskly. First guests will be here in 20. Leah turned slightly. The caterers are finishing setup. Everything's handled. Ethan finally looked at her, his eyes scanning her like a checklist. Good, you look good. The dress, it works. Not you look beautiful, not a kiss, not a touch, just cold approval. Like she was one of the horse doves. Then his gaze dropped to her belly. Is he settled? I don't want any surprises tonight. The words hit like a slap. He's a baby, Ethan, not a press threat. He sighed, running a hand through his immaculately styled hair. You know what I mean. Tonight needs to go flawlessly. Ben Carter is finalizing the contract with the Tokyo delegation. They need to see unity, strength, a power couple. He motioned vaguely between them. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. He grabbed it off the marble island without hesitation. As he read the screen, his entire face changed. His expression softened into a wide, authentic smile, a smile Leah hadn't seen in months. Sienna, you're downstairs? Fantastic, don't wait in line. I'll have security bring you straight up. Ethan's thumbs flew across his phone screen in a blur. The name Sienna Vale sent a chill rippling down Leah's spine. Sienna, founder of Lunaris, a booming lifestyle and branding empire with millions of followers. Beautiful, impeccably styled, and notably single. Ethan had been spending more and more time with her lately under the guise of strategic brand synergy. The kind of glowing praise he once reserved for Leah now poured freely when he talked about Sienna's vision, her instinct for influence. Leah's voice remained calm, though her chest tightened. Is she a surprise guest? Keynote, Ethan replied absently, not even glancing up. We're unveiling the Synthex X Lunaris partnership tonight. It's going to be huge. He looked up then, annoyance flickering in his eyes like she'd interrupted a mission-critical operation. I've got to go meet the first wave. Just smile, okay? Try to mingle. Everyone's watching. And just like that, he turned and walked away. The cavernous room felt even colder in his absence. She stood still for a long second, trying to steady the whirlwind churning in her chest. Sienna, of course. There was always a new visionary woman orbiting Ethan, but Sienna had lasted longer than most. Too long. Leah had heard the tone in his voice when he spoke of her, the admiration wrapped in excitement. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was the brutal ache of being replaced, not in position, but in value, in attention. She'd once been the person he couldn't stop talking about. Now she was a fixture in the background, while someone else lit up his world. Everyone's watching, he had said. But the one person who mattered, who she wanted to see her, hadn't looked at her in months. Leah took a shaky breath, her hands settling on her stomach. Their son responded with a gentle kick. She wasn't just Leah Blackwell, wife of a billionaire. She was a mother. And for the first time, she wondered if that title would be one she carried alone. The party wasn't a celebration, it was a pressure system. The energy in the room hummed with tension, ambition, and barely veiled competition. The penthouse, once echoing and silent, was now bursting with bodies swathed in couture and dripping in diamonds. Waitstaff flowed like water through the crowd, balancing flutes of champagne and amuse-bouches no bigger than a thumbnail. A pulsing undercurrent of ambient house music vibrated through her ribs. It was flawlessly orchestrated, and at the center of the storm was Ethan. Leah watched him from across the room, her face composed in the pleasant, practiced smile she'd perfected in the mirror. He was commanding, magnetic, utterly in his element. He slapped a senator's back with easy charm, exchanged laughter with a pop icon, leaned in to hear an aging venture capitalist's whispered wisdom. He gave each person his full attention, just enough to make them feel like they were the sun to his orbit. It was a performance, and Ethan was the star. Leah stood on the sidelines, as he'd instructed. She tried. She really did. She tried to blend in. Leah found herself trapped in a hollow conversation with the heavily lifted wife of a hedge fund magnate. The woman's face was so tight with Botox it looked like smiling physically hurt. They chatted about summering in Capri and how hard it was to find decent help these days. Every word felt like a line from a bad screenplay. Leah nodded, smiled politely, one hand resting over her belly like a reflex, an anchor in the storm. Across the room she spotted Ben Carter, Ethan's longtime business partner and their one mutual friend she still trusted. Ben was the engineer behind Synthex, the steady hand to Ethan's visionary persona. When he caught her gaze, he gave her a small, empathetic smile. He took a step toward her, but was immediately intercepted by a venture capitalist with shark eyes and a glittering Rolex. Leah's eyes drifted back to Ethan, and that's when she saw her. Sienna Vale. In a room full of impeccably styled women, she stood out like a celestial event. She wore a molten gold gown that clung to every perfect curve, her glossy raven hair cascading in waves over bare shoulders. Her laugh, loud, deliberate, cut through the crowd like a blade. She stood close to Ethan, her hand resting lightly on his forearm in a gesture that screamed intimacy, ownership. And Ethan, he was glowing. Not his polite photo-op grin, but a full-bodied, unguarded laugh, the kind Leah hadn't heard in years. They were radiant, perfect, polished. They looked like a power couple made for magazine covers and red carpets. And Leah? She was invisible, a ghost in a designer gown, her pregnancy casting her as a bloated footnote in the glittering story unfolding between her husband and this woman. A waiter approached, tray in hand. "Champ, oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. Sparkling water?" He swapped the glass awkwardly. A small gesture, but to Leah it landed like a slap. A reminder she no longer belonged in this world, one filled with effortless charm, limitless ambition, and glasses that clinked in celebration. But she had to try. For her child. For the shadow of the man she once loved. She took a breath, straightened her spine, and waded into the sea of silk, velvet, and cologne. "Excuse me," she whispered, weaving between strangers who barely noticed her. Eventually, she reached the epicenter, where Ethan and Sienna reigned supreme. "And that's when I told him," Sienna was saying, her voice dripping with theatrical flair. "If your algorithm can't even figure out which heels I want, how the hell is it going to predict the Dow Jones?" The circle exploded with laughter. Ethan's was the loudest. And then he saw her. Leah, standing just outside the circle. His smile faltered. Just for a second. A flicker of irritation crossed Ethan's face before he quickly replaced it with his public mask. "Leah," he said, his tone a little too bright, a little too loud. "There you are." He didn't introduce her to the group, didn't put a hand on her back, didn't offer even the illusion of warmth. Just checked the box of acknowledgement. Sienna Vale turned then, slowly and deliberately. Her dark eyes scanned Leah from head to toe, pausing just a beat longer on the curve of her belly. Then, she smiled, a cool, calculated expression. "Leah," she said, her voice equal parts honey and ice. "Ethan has told me so much about you." It was a lie, and they both knew it. "A pleasure to meet you, Sienna," Leah replied, her voice thin and strained. "Congratulations on the partnership." "Oh, we're just getting started," Sienna replied smoothly, turning her attention back to Ethan, dismissing Leah as if she were a waiter. "Jay, you have to tell them about the data integration rollout. It's absolutely genius." "Jay?" She called him Jay. Leah stood there frozen in place as the conversation surged around her. Jargon. Laughs. Industry buzzwords and acronyms, every syllable sharpened to impress and exclude. Ethan was already gone, mentally transported back to his passion project, Project Sentinel. His eyes sparkled with energy as he explained the system's machine learning. He didn't glance her way again. Leah was invisible. A wave of humiliation washed over her, hot and breathless. She backed away slowly, still smiling like it was glued on, until she was engulfed by the crowd. Eventually, she found refuge in a corner near the windows, the cityscape glittering beyond the glass. She stood with her back to the room, breathing in silence. The baby kicked hard, a sharp, urgent prod, as if he too sensed the sting of abandonment. Later, the speeches began. A stage had been erected at one end of the penthouse, and Ben Carter took the mic first. His words were kind, if somewhat cautious, praising Ethan's brilliance, his work ethic, his vision. Then Ethan stepped into the spotlight. The room stilled. He was electric, funny, commanding, inspirational. He spoke of a future shaped by technology, of solving the world's most pressing problems, of data and design, innovation and impact. For a moment, Leah felt that old spark of pride, the awe she used to carry when he talked about changing the world. But then, "Vision means nothing without execution," Ethan said, his voice crisp through the sound system. "And innovation is a team sport." He paused. "And that's why I'm incredibly proud to announce our new strategic partnership with Millionaire and its extraordinary founder, a woman whose clarity and drive rival even her brand's reach." He extended a hand. "Please welcome to the stage, Sienna Vale." The applause was deafening. Sienna Vale glided onto the stage with effortless grace, accepting a kiss on the cheek from Ethan. They stood together under the spotlight, a polished, powerful duo that practically gleamed. "And finally," Ethan said, raising a glass of champagne, "I want to make a toast." He turned to the crowd, voice warm and commanding. "To the future, to new beginnings, to partnerships that will redefine the very fabric of innovation, to Syntax X Lunaris." The room erupted in cheers and clinking glassware. He never mentioned her, not once, not Leah, not their child. On his 35th birthday, in their home, surrounded by their friends, he toasted a future she wasn't part of. He didn't forget her. He erased her, clearly, deliberately, publicly. The final cut came moments later. The music swelled, the lights spun. Laughter surged around her like a wave, and there he was, by the bar. Leah moved before she could second-guess it. Her heart pounded in her chest as she approached him, the sound of blood roaring in her ears. "Ethan," she said, barely louder than a breath. He turned, a whiskey glass in his hand, his eyes glazed with celebration and ego. "Leah, great party, huh? The investors are over the moon." "Your toast," she began, the words catching like thorns in her throat. He waved a dismissive hand. "It's business, sweetheart. You wouldn't get it." "I understand that you didn't mention me," she said quietly, "or your son." His face changed in an instant. The charm vanished. In its place, a hard, calculated glare. "Not now, Leah," he snapped, voice low and sharp. "Don't you dare do this. Not tonight. This is the most important night of my career. Go find a seat, talk to someone's wife. Just don't make a scene." And then, he turned his back on her. Like she was nothing. The music throbbed, the chatter rose, the party pulsed with expensive perfume and artificial light. But all Leah could hear was the sound of something breaking inside her. Her heart, her illusion. It was over. The fairy tale was done. Chloe had been right. She wasn't scenery. She was a liability, an inconvenience. But she wouldn't be managed. Not anymore. Without another word, Leah turned and walked. Not to the shadows, but to the door. Leaving the party felt like breaching the surface of water after nearly drowning. The cool hallway air struck her like a slap, crisp, real, merciful. Behind her, the celebration raged on. But no one noticed her leave. The private elevator descended in silence. Its mirrored walls reflected a woman Leah barely recognized, pale, stunned, adrift in a sapphire gown. Her hands cradled her belly, gently, instinctively. That life inside her felt like the only thing in her world that was still real. As the doors opened into the lobby, George, the longtime doorman, with a kind face and a warm heart, looked up in surprise. "Mrs. Blackwell, is everything all right? Would you like me to bring the car around?" The thought of riding in Ethan's sleek, chauffeured car, driven by Ethan's employee heading back to Ethan's penthouse, made her stomach churn. "No, thank you, George," she said softly, offering the barest of smiles. "I just need some air. I'll catch a cab." She stepped onto Sunset Boulevard. The same city that had looked so distant and artificial from the glass tower now felt comforting, messy, loud, human. The blur of headlights, the hum of strangers' voices, the siren's lonely cry in the distance. All of it was unscripted, unfiltered. It was real. The chill in the air bit at her bare arms, but she welcomed it. It reminded her she was still alive, that this wasn't just a nightmare playing out in the sterile silence of the penthouse. Every breath she took outside was jagged, but it was her own. No longer curated, no longer staged, just breath, just survival. She raised her hand, hailed a yellow cab. Even that, such a small, ordinary act, felt like rebellion, freedom. Sliding into the back seat, she exhaled for the first time in hours. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. She paused. Where could she go? Not Chloe's. Her friend would fly into a rage on her behalf, and Leah didn't have the energy to be protected tonight. Not her parents' house in Seattle. A late-night arrival would spark panic she wasn't ready to explain. She needed anonymity, space, stillness. A place to remember who she was before all this. Before Ethan. Before the spotlight that turned love into performance and comfort into branding. The Greenwich Hotel, she said. It came to her from a foggy memory, an article she once read about downtown retreats and hidden oases. Private, understated, discreet. A place to be forgotten. She didn't cry on the ride there. The pain was too dense for tears. It sat like stone in her chest, unmovable, cold. Outside the window, the city blurred. Each neon sign, each lit marquee, each stranger chasing something, reminded her of the life she was stepping away from. The glossy storefronts, the grand ambitions, the crowd and performance of being Ethan Blackwell's wife. He was chasing his dreams so relentlessly that he'd left her and their unborn son in the dust. She thought of his last words. "Not now, Leah. Don't make a scene." He hadn't been worried about her heart. He'd been worried about headlines. Optics. Closing the deal. She wasn't his wife, not his partner, not the mother of his child. To Ethan, she had become a variable, an unpredictable outlier in a perfect equation, a potential threat to the polished symmetry of his empire. The realization didn't break Leah. It clarified. Cold, clean, final. It hit her like ice water, sharp, shocking, and sobering. The man she had married, who once loved her for her intellect, her curiosity, her soul, he was gone. Not transformed, replaced by the CEO. By the icon, by the brand. At the Greenwich Hotel, Leah paid with a personal credit card, the one she had never canceled from her before life. Ethan didn't even know it existed. She checked in under her maiden name, Leah Hayes. No red carpets, no lingering glances, no PR photos. Just a tired woman in a soft dress quietly booking a room after midnight. The anonymity was dizzying in its relief. Her room was the exact opposite of the penthouse, a sanctuary of warmth and authenticity. Exposed wood beams, vintage leather, woven textiles, a fireplace, a real bookshelf filled with real books. Not curated, not designed for Instagram. Lived in. The first thing Leah did was strip off the sapphire gown. The designer dress pulled at her feet like the skin of someone she no longer recognized. She removed the diamond necklace, the earrings Ethan's assistant had selected on his behalf for their last anniversary. Now, barefoot in a simple slip, she felt lighter, almost free. Her phone buzzed. An avalanche of missed calls and texts. Ben Carter, the event coordinator, a slew of numbers she didn't care to read. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering, and then she powered it off. Just like that, the digital world vanished. The silence was absolute. No vibrations, no pings, no one to perform for. She was disconnected, unreachable, and for the first time in what felt like years, free. Leah turned on the bath, adding the fragrant oils provided by the hotel. As she sank into the warmth, the tension in her limbs finally began to dissolve. And the tears came. Not the loud, dramatic sobs of a broken woman, but quiet, steady streams of grief that slid down her cheeks and disappeared into the water. She wept for the man she had lost, for the love she thought would outlast anything, for the naive girl who believed in fairy tales, and for her unborn child, a life already stepping into a fractured world. She stayed in the tub until the water turned tepid. Then, slowly, she rose, wrapped herself in a plush towel, and stepped into the beginning of something she didn't yet have a name for. She stared at her reflection in the fogged-up mirror. Her eyes were red and puffy, but her gaze was steady. The humiliation was gone, burned away by something colder, quieter. Resolve. She couldn't go back. Wouldn't. Leah knew now with a certainty that settled deep in her bones. She couldn't raise a child in that world. A world where affection came with conditions, where love was transactional and worth was measured in press releases and quarterly returns. She didn't want her son growing up believing his father's attention was something to compete for, something to earn. She didn't want him to witness his mother disappear day by day until she was a ghost in her own story. Her decision wasn't dramatic. It was calm, clear, unshakable. This wasn't an escape, it was a rescue. She was saving herself, and she was saving her son. Leah pulled on the hotel's plush robe, curled into the oversized armchair by the window, and wrapped herself in a cashmere throw. She didn't turn on the TV. She didn't check her phone. She just watched as the night slowly bled into morning. The sky over the Pacific horizon shifted from ink black to bruised purple. She felt the baby move, soft, fluid turns inside her belly. "It's just you and me now, little one," she whispered, hands resting on the curve of her stomach. "And that's going to be enough, I promise." The sun rose over the city, gilding the tops of skyscrapers in gold. And in that moment, simple, quiet, unremarkable, Leah Blackwell felt a kind of peace she hadn't known in years. She had lost a husband. She had lost a penthouse. She had walked away from a life of breathtaking luxury. But in this room, as a new day began, she found something far more valuable. She found herself. Hundreds of miles away, Ethan Blackwell woke with a start. His skull throbbed, each pulse pounding behind his eyes like a jackhammer. His mouth was dry and bitter with the aftertaste of top-shelf whiskey. A ray of sunlight sliced through a gap in the blackout curtains, landing directly on his face. He groaned and rolled over, burying his face in a pillow that still faintly carried the scent of Leah's lavender shampoo. The bed was cold and empty. He reached for his phone on the nightstand, swearing as pain spiked behind his temple. 7:30 a.m. Board meeting at 9. He swung his legs off the side of the bed, wincing as the room tilted slightly. But he smiled. The night before had been a triumph. The investors from Tokyo had been ecstatic. The press coverage was already flooding in. He had won, or so he thought. The deal was sealed. Ben had confirmed it. Contracts signed, investors thrilled. And Sienna? Sienna had been spectacular. Ethan frowned. Where was Leah? Probably sulking in one of the guest suites, he thought with a flicker of irritation. She'd been so emotional last night, so needy. He'd told her how critical the evening was. Couldn't she have just played her part? He'd handle it later. A new bracelet, a weekend in Paris. That usually fixed it. His solution to every crack in their marriage was always the same. Something glittering, something expensive, like problems could be polished away. He dragged himself to the bathroom, splashed cold water over his face. The mirror reflected bloodshot eyes and the early shadow of a beard. His phone buzzed against the marble counter. Not a call, not a few. A relentless, vibrating swarm. A rising, angry buzz. He snatched it up, confused. 117 missed calls, 342 new messages, 99 plus notifications across every social media and news platform. His stomach dropped. This wasn't normal. This was a 5-alarm fire, the kind of numbers that signaled collapse, an empire under siege, not celebration. His mind jumped to the markets. Had there been a crash in Asia? Did Project Sentinel have a flaw? He skipped the calls. His mother? Ben, his PR director, and opened the first message. It was from Ben. Call me, now. Do not talk to anyone else. Another from Cynthia, his no-nonsense head of PR. Do not leave the building. Do not tweet. Do not comment. Do not breathe online. We are at DEFCON 1. His heart pounded. What the hell was happening? With shaking fingers, Ethan tapped the Twitter icon, and the world collapsed. "Where is Leah?" The #1 trending topic worldwide. He couldn't breathe. Underneath it, Ethan Blackwell's Synthex scandal, Sienna Vale, the look. His thumb hovered, then clicked. The first image stopped his heart cold. Not a polished press photo, not a filtered Instagram post. It was a grainy phone snapshot, raw, damning. In the foreground, he and Sienna were laughing, heads close, bathed in golden party light. He was gazing at her with full adoration, hand brushing her arm. They looked magnetic, in love, untouchable. And just behind them, slightly blurred, but unmistakably present, was Leah, pregnant, alone, watching them. She stood alone, one hand resting over her swollen belly. The deep sapphire of her gown cut through the crowd like a spotlight. But it wasn't the color that captured the world. It was her face. Frozen in an unguarded moment, caught not in anger or bitterness, but pure devastation. Leah didn't just look sad. She looked lost, shattered, a ghost haunting the edge of her own life. There was a fragility to the image that pierced the viewer, a silent, aching plea beneath the surface. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was erasure, captured in real time. The contrast was unbearable. In the foreground, Ethan and Sienna, golden and gleaming, laughing like they ruled the world. In the background, Leah, glowing from within, fading from without. The image told an entire story in a single frame. It needed no caption. It needed no explanation. It was truth distilled. The internet responded with a fury usually reserved for war zones and scandal. This picture is worth 1,000 words, and all of them are trash. She's pregnant, and he's grinning with some influencer? Scumbag. That look, that's the face of a woman who just realized she's entirely alone. This isn't just a picture. It's evidence. And everywhere, one hashtag repeated like a drumbeat. Where is Leah? Ethan scrolled frantically. It wasn't just TMZ or Page 6. The New York Times had it on their homepage, a real-time reckoning. Not just gossip, but mainstream outrage. Synthex CEO Ethan Blackwell faces backlash after viral image sparks concern for pregnant wife. Forbes had already dubbed it, "The Look," how one photo sparked a billion-dollar PR crisis. Someone had christened the photo "The Look," and the name stuck. The narrative was too perfect. The tech billionaire, the influencer mistress, and the invisible pregnant wife. His phone buzzed. "Cynthia," he answered, throat dry. "Ethan," she said, all warmth stripped from her voice. The tone of a general realizing the fortress was burning. "Tell me she's with you. Tell me she's just in another room, and this is all a ridiculous misunderstanding you two are about to laugh about." I don't know where she is," Ethan stammered. Panic began to rise in his chest. She must have gone to a guest suite after the party. He left the master bedroom barefoot, the marble freezing beneath his feet. First guest room, pristine, empty. Second, untouched. Third, nothing. He sprinted to her walk-in closet. The sapphire gown was gone. So was one of her suitcases. "Ethan, talk to me," Cynthia barked through the phone. "Where is your wife?" He stared at the space where her bag had been. "She's not here," he said, the words hollow in his mouth. "Her suitcase is gone. Her dress is gone. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Ethan could hear Cynthia exhale, a slow, deliberate drag from what was almost certainly her fourth cigarette of the morning. "Okay," she said finally, her voice low and grim. "So she's not a hostage. She's a ghost." She sighed. "That's worse. Much worse. It means she's in control of the narrative, and right now, the narrative is that you're a monster who drove your pregnant wife out into the night." Ethan's mind scrambled backward. The toast. The way she looked when he told her not to cause a scene. The way he toasted to Sienna. "Oh God." "Yeah," Cynthia said, voice sharp. "Oh God is right." The board meeting? Cancelled. The stock's already down 9% in pre-market. The Japanese investors? They've paused the transfer, brand instability concerns. And Sienna? Ethan whispered. Her publicist released a statement an hour ago, says their relationship is strictly professional and that she's, quote, deeply concerned for Leah's well-being. Cynthia didn't laugh. She didn't need to. She just delivered the kill shot. "She threw you under the bus, Ethan." He collapsed onto the edge of the unmade bed, the phone cold against his ear. The penthouse, the crown jewel of his empire, suddenly felt suffocating, accusatory. It was filled with Leah's ghost. "What do I do?" he whispered. "You find her," Cynthia snapped. Her tone was unforgiving. "You find your pregnant, heartbroken wife. You get on your knees and you beg, publicly, loudly, because right now, Ethan, she's not just your wife, she's the only thing that can save you. The call ended. The jackhammer in his head had gone. In its place, cold, paralyzing dread. Ethan looked around at the stunning views, the priceless art, the sleek perfection of the penthouse. And for the first time, he saw it. In chasing everything, he had lost the only thing that ever truly mattered. And now the entire world was watching him drown. Meanwhile, Leah slept. Deeply, dreamlessly. The Greenwich Hotel cocooned her in unfamiliar peace. She didn't wake to a phone or an assistant or a calendar reminder. She woke to silence. For a moment, it disoriented her. The absence of stress, the stillness, it was foreign. Then slowly, the memories returned. Not with panic, not with heartbreak, but with the steady calm of a decision already made. She was gone. It was real. Leah had left and she wasn't going back. She ordered breakfast from room service. Simple. Toast, scrambled eggs, orange juice. She ate slowly, intentionally. It was the first meal in months that hadn't been consumed while Ethan typed under the table or barked commands at his AI assistant. No distractions, just her baby, kicking softly, and the faint hum of Los Angeles coming to life outside her hotel window. The peace felt delicate, a bubble. She knew it couldn't last. Her parents would be worried. Chloe, absolutely frantic. She had to check in. Let them know she was safe. Leah took a deep breath as if bracing for a plunge into icy water. Then she powered on her phone. The device came alive, instantly, violently. Buzzes, alerts, vibrations that made it hum in her hand like a living creature. Hundreds of texts, dozens of missed calls, news headlines flashing like sirens. The moment she saw the volume of alerts, it hit her like a wave. Her absence hadn't gone unnoticed. It had caused a rupture. Her chest tightened, panic rising. What had she done? Her private heartbreak was public. With trembling fingers, she opened a text from Chloe. Just 20 minutes old. Leah, please tell me you're seeing this. The world is on fire. Are you safe? Call me. I'm already on my way. I think I know where you'd go to get away from that maniac. Before Leah could process it, another ping. Okay, just saw page 6, Greenwich Hotel. Smart girl, don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm 10 minutes away. Her heart pounded. She opened a news app and froze. There it was. The look. Her own image stared back at her. Not the woman she knew, but the one the world now saw. Tragic, alone, a ghost in a glamorous room. Seeing her heartbreak captured, broadcast for consumption, made her nauseous. This wasn't why she left. She hadn't planned a takedown. She just wanted peace. But as she scrolled, something changed. Yes, there was pity, but more than that, outrage. An entire tidal wave of fury on her behalf. Thousands, mostly women, were telling their own stories. About being ignored. About shrinking to fit into someone else's spotlight. About feeling invisible. They weren't just sympathizing. They were connecting. Her personal pain had become something bigger. A spark. She felt it like a current, buzzing beneath her skin, reverberating through the screen. She wasn't alone in this anymore. Her silence had become their voice. A voice. A reckoning. Every woman knows the look. Standing with Leah Blackwell today. May we all have the courage to walk out of the party. He didn't just ignore his wife. He erased her. But the world had responded with a rallying cry. We refuse to be erased. A strange, powerful feeling bloomed in Leah's chest, displacing fear, dissolving shame. It wasn't rage. It was something cleaner. Stronger. Empowerment. She wasn't just the sad woman in that photo. She was a symbol. The same quiet strength that carried her out of the penthouse now echoed back to her, amplified 1,000,000 times over. It filled the empty parts inside her with something solid, something steady. For the first time in a long time, she felt grounded in who she was. Not Ethan's wife, not a name on a guest list, but Leah. Just Leah. And that was enough. A sharp knock made her jump. "It's me," called Chloe's voice from the hallway. Leah rushed to open the door. Chloe swept in like a storm, trench coat flaring behind her, a massive coffee in one hand, her eyes already locked on Leah. She dropped her bag and pulled Leah into a fierce, bone-cracking hug. "You did it," Chloe whispered into her hair. "You actually did it. I'm so damn proud of you." When she pulled back, her journalist's eyes were already scanning Leah's face, analyzing, reading. "Are you okay? Really okay?" "I am now," Leah said, and realized to her surprise it was true. "But Chloe, this?" She gestured vaguely toward the tidal wave of notifications still flooding her phone. "It's insane." "It's a reckoning," Chloe said, her tone dark but deeply satisfied. Ethan built a global empire on a curated fantasy, brilliant, benevolent tech god. But that one picture, it blew the whole thing apart. It showed people the truth, and now they're furious. She sipped her coffee. So what's the plan? Because you can't hide in this hotel forever. He's going to find you. I know, Leah said, her voice firm. I'm not going back, Chloe. Not ever. Good, Chloe nodded. That's phase 1. Phase 2? Protecting yourself and your son. She sat on the edge of the bed, fingers flying across her phone. You're not just Leah Hayes, art historian, anymore. You're Leah Hayes, the woman who took on a billionaire. He's going to fight dirty. He'll paint you as unstable, emotional, vindictive. We get ahead of it. I know people, she added. The best people. Her fingers paused on one name. Catherine Raldi. Cat Raldi. The most ruthless divorce lawyer in New York. She eats men like Ethan for breakfast. Her tone sharpened with resolve, like a war general preparing the first strike. This wasn't just damage control. It was defense. It was offense. It was war. And Chloe was already 10 steps ahead. Chloe was already dialing. As she paced the room, speaking in low, urgent tones, Leah moved toward the window. The city outside didn't look so overwhelming anymore. She had a friend. She had a plan, and she had something unexpected, something unshakable. The world was standing with her. Ethan had seen her as decoration, an accessory. He never imagined that someday she'd become the headline. The war room inside the Fifth Avenue penthouse was in full crisis mode. The air reeked of tension and stale espresso. Screens glowed, phones buzzed, voices snapped and cracked like live wires. Cynthia, the head of PR, stood before a massive monitor, her heels planted, her jaw tight. The screen displayed a plunging red line, Synthex's stock price. 2 attorneys from Whitehall and Keller, the firm on permanent retainer, were camped at the sleek glass dining table, surrounded by laptops, documents, and rapidly cooling coffee. Ethan paced like a panther in a cage, dressed in sweatpants and a stretched-out tee. He hadn't slept. His mind was a storm of disbelief, rage, and mounting dread. How did it come to this? One photo? One goddamn photo. Years of calculated branding, shattered overnight. Cynthia clicked her remote. A new slide lit up the screen. A collage of headlines from every major outlet. He chose the influencer over his pregnant wife. Tech's new villain, Ethan Blackwell, America's most hated billionaire? Zara Vale is not my mistress, Ethan barked, slamming his fist onto the table. She's a business partner. The public doesn't care about the truth, Cynthia shot back. They care about the story. Her icy calm was cracking. Fast. And right now, the story is that you're a heartless narcissist who drove his pregnant wife out into the night. She's lying, Ethan stammered. Zara knew exactly. She's already spun a narrative to Vanity Fair, Cynthia cut in. Overfamiliar interactions. Professional discomfort. Feeling trapped by the power imbalance. She's painting herself as another one of your victims. The ungrateful, Ethan started, is irrelevant, interrupted Marcus Thorne, lead counsel, voice like granite. Our concern isn't Zara Vale, it's Leah. We need a joint statement, photos, a story, something about the pressures of public life. We need a united front. Ethan's voice rose, raw and fraying. How am I supposed to show a united front when I don't even know where she is? He turned toward Ari, his security chief, a former Mossad agent with eyes like stone. Anything? We're tracking the cab she took, Ari said, eyes glued to his tablet. Partial plate matched in the TLC system. We're flagging activity on all her known credit cards. Still nothing. The private elevator dinged. Doors opened. Ben Carter stepped out. His face was pale, eyes sunken, shoulders heavy with exhaustion and something worse, disappointment. Ben walked past the lawyers and the PR strategists and stopped directly in front of Ethan. I tried calling you all night, he said, his voice low, heavy. I was busy, Ethan snapped. I was putting out the fire. Ben let out a short, bitter laugh. The fire, Ethan? You lit the match. I stood on that stage and praised your vision, and 5 minutes later you burned it all to the ground. Not just the company, us, your family. Don't you dare lecture me about my family, Ethan seethed. Why not? Ben shot back, voice rising. No one else has. I was there when you met her. You were different then. You cared about her thoughts. You listened to her. When was the last time you asked her about her museum exhibit? Do you even know what it's about? Do you know she's terrified of giving birth? That she's been having nightmares? Or were you too busy changing the world to notice hers was falling apart? Each word landed like a punch. Ethan's chest felt hollow, as if the floor dropped beneath him. Guilt, cold and hollow, pooled in his gut, mixing with a shock he wasn't expecting. For the first time, the weight of his negligence felt real, not as a vague ache, but as a seismic shift ripping through him. Ethan stared at Ben, a cold, sick realization pooling in his gut he didn't know. Not about the nightmares, not about the exhibit, not about any of it. He'd been so focused on the empire he was building, he hadn't seen the life he was neglecting. Then Ari's voice cut through the silence. "We found her." Every head turned. "She checked into the Greenwich Hotel around midnight," Ari said. "Used a credit card under her maiden name, Hayes. One we didn't know about, not linked to any joint accounts." Relief surged in Ethan's chest, followed immediately by something darker. She was safe, but not in a way that brought comfort. The secret credit card was proof she wasn't lost. She was making a choice he drove her to. She was safe, but she'd planned this. The secret credit card? That wasn't impulse, it was premeditation. A betrayal. "Get the car," Ethan said, voice like steel. "I'm going down there." "No," Cynthia barked. "That's the worst thing you could do. You need a plan. We need control." "I have a plan," Ethan said, grabbing his jacket. "I'm going to talk to my wife. I'm going to fix this." He was Ethan Blackwell. He could solve any algorithm, close any deal, crack any code. He could fix this. He could fix her. He stormed out, ignoring the chaos behind him. But the chaos outside the Greenwich Hotel was worse. Someone had leaked his destination. The sidewalk was a wall of flashing cameras, reporters, and screaming questions. As his Maybach pulled up, the mob surged. Lights exploded like gunfire. "Ethan, is it true you threw your pregnant wife out? Are you in love with Sienna Vale? Where is Leah?" Shielded by security, Ethan pushed through the crowd, his face carved from stone. The noise was deafening, a barrage of questions, flashes, chaos. But then, he stepped inside the Greenwich Hotel lobby, and just like that, the world fell silent. Cool air, soft lighting, the hum of polite luxury, an oasis. Ethan strode toward the elevator, jaw clenched. He rode in silence, each floor ticking by like a countdown. Her room was at the end of the hallway. He paused outside the door, his anger cooling into something heavier, fear. What if she wouldn't open it? What if Ben had been right? He raised his hand and knocked, too loud in the hush of the corridor. "Leah, it's me. Please, we need to talk. Just open the door." He waited, heart pounding. There was movement inside. A flicker of hope sparked in his chest. She was going to see him. He could explain. He could apologize. He could fix this. The door opened, and the woman standing there was not Leah. She was in her late 50s, elegant, composed, and deadly calm. Impeccable gray pantsuit, a folder held like a weapon. Her eyes were sharp, her presence immovable. She looked at Ethan, not as a billionaire, not as a husband, but as a problem. "Mr. Blackwell," she said, voice clipped and clear. "I'm Catherine Raldi, legal counsel for Leah Hayes." She stepped forward, body blocking the doorway. "My client will not be speaking with you, today or any day, without me present." Her voice did not waver. "She has instructed me to inform you that she will be filing for divorce. All future communication regarding Miss Hayes and your unborn child will go through my office. We'll be in touch." And with that, she gently closed the door. The soft click echoed down the hallway, like a verdict, like a guillotine. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the polished wood. The words echoed in his head. Divorce. Unborn child. My office. He had come to explain, to demand, to win. But the game had changed. The rules were no longer his, and he had already lost. Leah's story is a powerful reminder. True wealth isn't measured in portfolios or press headlines. It's measured in dignity, in self-worth, in the courage to choose yourself, even if it means leaving everything behind. She was ignored, but she refused to be invisible. Her quiet defiance became a global roar, a testament that you can't silence a woman who's found her voice. What did you think of Ethan's downfall? Was it karma, or a collapse of his own making? So the story is over. Our wonderful friends, are you still here at this hour? If you are, then something in Leah's journey must have touched your heart. Maybe it echoed your own silence, or reminded you of someone who forgot their worth. Because that's what this story is really about. Not betrayal, not scandal, but awakening. Leah's quiet courage wasn't loud or dramatic. It was gentle and steady, like a tide rising until it can no longer be ignored. And that's a truth so many of us need to hear. You are not invisible just because someone failed to see you. We live in a world that praises productivity, power, and perfection, but Leah reminds us that real strength lies in the choice to walk away from what doesn't honor us. She didn't shout. She didn't seek revenge. She simply chose herself, and in doing so sparked something far greater. Her story carries a message for every woman and every man who's ever felt like background noise in someone else's spotlight. You are the main character of your life. Not a prop, not a liability, not a footnote. Like Maya Angelou once said, each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. That's what Leah did. And that's what each of us can do in our own quiet ways. So if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of your strength or someone else's, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded they are worth more than neglect. And subscribe to this channel. There are more stories to tell, more voices to lift, more hearts to heal. Click the bell icon. Stay with us, because the next story might just be yours.